Julie Kenny here. Today I'm going to talk to you about boring subjects. Why on earth would I talk to you about boring subjects? Well, you may well be in a business where you think that it's really difficult to talk about what you do because a lot of people just find it, well, boring. Now, that might be accountancy, that might be a tech business, that might be some legal businesses, and you know it's important. But how do you make it not boring? And how do you get out there and connect with more people when that's what you do? So I'm going to be talking about that today, giving you some ideas about what you can do about that and how you can make it not boring and still get out and talk to people and connect with more people who you know need to connect with you. So I'm Julie Kenny. I help people speak with confidence and authenticity to promote themselves and their businesses. So what makes a topic boring in the first place? What makes us decide that? And we all know that in reality, nothing is boring to the right person. I mean, it might be the depths of tax returns, but to the right person, that right information is going to be just what they need, and they are going to be listening to it with intent. But a lot of the time, we are talking about something that's necessary, but how do we make a good talk about it? Or break it down into lives or whatever it is that you want to do. And the first thing I want to talk about is your audience. It's all about your audience. Whatever you are talking about, it is always about your audience, not about you. It's about your audience. What does your audience need from you? What does your audience want to achieve? What are their goals? And it might be that your audience is not necessarily your ideal client or not full of it. So quite often I talk about doing guest talks, doing a signature talk for your business. And if you go out and you do a networking talk, there may be 2 or 3 people in the group who are absolutely your ideal client. But how do you start to connect with more people so that you'll build your network? Because networking is not just about getting to your ideal client. It's about understanding how you can connect with people in such a way that they will be your advocates or recognize you as ideal collaborators. So for example, let's say you are doing accountancy and somebody else there has an event coming up and they know that they really could do the session on accountancy. So they could invite you to that event and you would have a very much more targeted audience because that session would be advertised as being about accountancy. So people would go because that's what they wanted to hear about. So your advocates and your collaborators are as important in that environment as your ideal client, potential clients. But how do you make it engaging to all of those people? And this is why we need to be very clear about who our audience is and to be realistic what that outcome is. Because if we go in there thinking we're just going to sell and that's all we need to do, then we're going to be missing our point. We're going to be missing a lot of value from building that network. So people go there to get something. Perhaps it's not the full detail of what you say, but they will be interested in you, why you do your business, why you work in a particular way. So how might you add and put across your expertise in that way that connects? Well, everybody is looking to be entertained a little bit. And I don't mean you do a comedy routine. but we can all say something interesting. We can all connect at a human level. And whatever it is we do, it connects at a human level. It doesn't matter if it's in the depths of technology. At some point and of the end of one point to the end of another, there might be a huge amount of tech in between that you're dealing with. But there are still people at each end who are going to be using that, going to be supplying that. And those people matter. And that tech doesn't matter without those people. So stories is a fantastic way to bring that in. And I come back to stories time and time again. When I say stories, it doesn't have to mean a whole long 10-minute epic about something. It's just how somebody is affected, how somebody is touched by something. And the types of things you can bring into this is how you go about that service, how you go about identifying the right thing for your client, how you go about connecting with somebody in a way that serves them quickly and gets to the point for them. And that applies to tech, legal systems, web development as much as anything else. Yes, the tech matters. Yes, those details matter. And you want to be putting some of those things in, perhaps, but not without connecting to the human story. So connect. So bring in stories, bring in relevance, bring in humor if you can, and you don't have to tell jokes. And I'll talk about, it's something I talk about in my group a lot more. It's something I will be posting a little bit more on my Facebook page as well. But a touch of humor adds something there. How do you connect with that wider audience? You say something that is human, you say something that is relevant to them, or that can be taken in a relevant way. So for an example of humor, you might find a really humorous quote that emphasizes what you do and the importance of what you do, but also would mean something in a much wider context. So if you get that across to somebody, then the people in the audience who may not be wanting the detail of what you do will still get to find the essence of you. And that is when they go, oh, this is somebody I'd really like to work with, or this is somebody that I could recommend to people, because they have a certain level of how they deal with things, of how they talk to people, of how they deal with people, maybe how they focus on the importance of just making sure that that boring stuff is done absolutely right. And you can talk about that without necessarily getting into the detail. I've mentioned a couple of times now about detail. Let's just talk there about detail for a moment. If you have spent, they say it takes something like 10,000 hours or something to be an expert in something. If you are an expert in something and you have taken time to get there, you cannot expect your audience to make that transition in the same time as you have, even when it comes to one small thing. And that is something that I think a lot of us see time and time again, that somebody, it becomes overload. This is one of the things that makes something boring, is either because we don't connect, or because there is so much overload, so much information in there, we have no idea what to do with. So we start switching off. So unless you are training, and if you are training, you want to be doing it as a training course with building upon idea, unless it is training, do not try and turn it into your talk into a full training course. You might want to go, yes, deep on one particular issue, or quite broad and quite high level, just maybe point by point on something, but don't overload. Do not overload your audience, because that is really, it's where the people struggle. And finally, I'm going to talk about slides. one of the most boring things is we've all heard of death by PowerPoint. There's really mostly two types of slides that you want to be having. One is signposting. And by signposting, I mean it's either going to say, these are the areas we're going to cover, 1, 2, 3, 4, or it's going to say just small phrases or single words, so people know roughly where they're at. What you do not want is a full text of what you are saying on your slide, because people cannot read and listen at the same time. They just can't do it. I know your other half may say that they can read the paper and listen to you at the same time, but you know they can't. You cannot read a full screen of text and listen to somebody at the same time. So if you're dishing out a full screen of text, your audience is going to be reading that, because unless there is something that is physically stopping them, we are programmed to go to read that text, and we will not listen. We will not be listening to that audience, to that speaker. So you just want to be signposting phrases, small phrases, words, or you want to illustrate. And that might be a picture. It might just be a picture that gives the right mood. It might be a diagram, which shouldn't be too complex, that it shows the statistic, because you can't, most of us can't envisage statistics. If I tell you 50% of people prefer speaking in a room, and 30% like Facebook Lives, and another 30% like Reels, and I give you other things, which, to be honest, all those things are made up. Don't take those as statistics. But if I gave you statistics like that, you wouldn't necessarily be able to quite hold that in your head. But if I show you a graph or a pie chart or something, then you can. Yeah. So illustration is really, really important. When it comes to a quote, you might just drop the quote on the page on its own. It's sort of a type of illustration, but that's as long as those words want to go. And there are a couple of other types of slides if you're going to be really interactive with them, but that's heading towards training, so I'm not going to go to those. So your slide should be illustrating or signposting. It should not be repeating your detail. Send a handout for that, send something else for that. Don't do that. But when you have these boring subjects, they're not boring to the right people. And they're not boring if they put across in the right way. They're boring if they are done at the wrong level and said in the wrong way to the wrong people, aiming for the wrong results. Now, I'm going to be talking about these boring subjects, technical, whether it's technical, whether it might just be you just don't quite know how to transfer your expertise in a way that connects with an audience. Now, I'm going to be talking about that all this month on social media. If you're a woman in business, do drop into my Facebook group, Embracing the Speaker Within, and you're going to find out a lot more in there. I will be dropping a little bit on my other socials as well. But just to summarize, think about your audience's needs. Think about how you can make it relevant to them. Use stories. Bring your personality out, and that will come through those stories, through how you engage, through it might be your sense of humor. It might be the things that light you up, and just talk about the results that you get and how they light you up. And remember, Do not turn a talk into a textbook. So I hope that has helped. If you want to know more, get in contact with me. I do have a session now that I offer. It's just a 1 hour single session called Sparkle My Speech, as well as other coaching that I offer. But if you want to drop in to my Facebook group for free, please do so. I would love to see you in there. And we'll be talking more about how we can make these subjects a lot more exciting for people. We're going to be dealing with that all this month. So if that's something you get stuck with, I should look forward to seeing you again.